Hi everyone, welcome to this AI evolution session. I'm Panpan, a research scientist at SCB Tenex, and I will be moderating this session. And with me today, we have William Tjhi, Head of Applied Research at AI Singapore. In this session, we will be talking about building multilingual large language models for Southeast Asia, covering the cultural knowledge gap in language models, and also the Sea Lion project at AI Singapore. Hi, William. Thank you for joining us today. And
Hi, Panpan. Thanks for having me. Yeah,
before we start, can you tell us a bit more about AI Singapore and what you guys work on? And yeah.
sure. So AI Singapore is the National AI Program Office of the Government of Singapore. We are fully funded by the government. We are hosted by the National University of Singapore. And we do many things, including research, co-development with industry, and capability development as well. But for my team, we are focusing on building open source products for the benefit of Singapore as well as the region. And for the past 2 years, we have been developing these open source large language models for Southeast Asia. It's called the Sea Lion.
Right. Yeah. So as a motivation to, like building these regional or local language models like Sea Lion, I guess we can first talk about the cultural knowledge or cultural gap in these AI models here. So last year, this data collected by AI Singapore noted that 73% of existing large language models originated from the US or China, and even up to 95% of these models train on mostly English data. Can you share some examples of how these Western-centric data bias could create problems for Southeast Asian users?
Sure, sure. Thanks for the question, Panpan. Let me start by saying that our field is advancing very rapidly. So I think those numbers probably have changed, probably becoming a little bit less extreme. But I think the gap remains, and I think the narrowing rate really vary. Depends on which language and which modality that we are talking about. I think for the bigger economies of Southeast Asia, I think the narrowing rate is much faster compared to the smaller economies. And I think when it comes to the modality itself, text, which is a little bit more established, probably the gap is narrower as compared to other modalities like videos and audios. Having said that, there are a couple of examples I can share with you where this bias remain. For example, I don't know about you, I quite frequently use LLMs to help me generate images, especially for my presentation. Because of the project that we are doing, I think we often need to kind of come up with image that illustrate the cultural nuances of our region, the background, the people. And I found myself having to prompt the LLMs almost all the time, very, very, many times before I get it right. Sometimes I don't even get it right. Something that I don't experience if I am dealing with non-Southeast Asia, like a more general kind of images, right? So there is a bit of a productivity gap there. Sometimes I never get it right. So I just give up. I just use stock photos, right? This productivity gap actually translates to beyond images, right? Imagine for videos, right? In a not far distant future, perhaps Hollywood producers, they may actually build their movies by probably coming up with some kind of draft using LLMs, right? They probably get a working draft after first or second attempt prompting, but for Thai movie producers, probably they need to do more prompting, right? So all these things create a little bit of productivity gap that may not be so good, right? It kind of not help with the younger generation. They may have the incentive to ignore their own cultures, right? And I think just another quick example is that, I actually tested a frontier LLMs recently to come up with business plan in Indonesia. I think for Jakarta, works perfectly. But for small towns in other parts, it's either they overestimate the infrastructure readiness or they underestimate it, right? I think just to conclude on this, the most systematic study probably was done by Singapore's Infocom and Media Development Authority, where they perform a red teaming exercise for Southeast Asia and Asia culture, trying to make the frontier LLMs late last year say the wrong things. There's cultural insensitive things, right, for both English as well as Southeast Asia. And I think the rate of success was very clear, right? When it comes to Southeast Asia, it's much easier to make the model behave wrongly compared to English. So all these gaps still exist.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think we also see like similar issues, like, like with like our work on, like Thai language models, and also when we use like existing language model for like Thai language purpose as well. And yeah, so having said that, can you maybe share some, insights about how sea lion models handle like, like these complex cultural contexts that, global models may miss, and how may this cultural understanding be critical for enterprise applications?
Yeah. So I think I want to address that second question first, right? I think most people won't argue the importance of safety guardrail when it comes to LLM deployment, right? And I would argue that I think in the context of Southeast Asia or in general, right, cultural sensitivity is part of safety, right? You don't want to offend your users, right? It has to be there, right? I think for us in the Sea Lion team, we have multi-pronged strategies to make us a little bit more effective in dealing with these biases. One is data production, right? I think we are very deliberate when we build data, even as we move towards relying more on synthetic data generation. We have human experts, native speakers who are working with us to help review. They're always somewhere in the background, making sure that the quality is there. We also rely on our partners like SCB10X, right? I think you are aware that we have been investing a lot of efforts building the community in our region who become our partners, and this have become a very important element in ensuring that the bias in the data are minimum, right? I think the second track is on the alignment itself, right? Like, for example, I mentioned about this red teaming exercise that IMDA Singapore did last year. We were part of it, right? In fact, we used the output of that to kind of retrain the model and making sure that the sea lion a little bit more robust towards adversarial attacks like the one demonstrated in the report, right? And also we actually did a follow-up with some of the participants there to continue on aligning with their cultural values to make the model a little bit safer. And finally, of course, we have strategic partnerships across the region with organizations that are big. Like in Thailand, we have collaborations with SCB10X. We have collaboration with Gojek in Indonesia. When they deploy the model, the response from the customers, they tell us strong signals on what is safe, what is not unsafe, what bias remain from the real users, right? And then we take this seriously in our development.
Right. So yeah, so just in these complex space, you guys just have like local data, try to ensure that model behave as expected, and then with like these a lot of like bias issues that big tech players may not know even exist. That is really cool. So yeah, so maybe we can talk a little bit more about like the technical challenges in building these sea lion models. So I noticed that in your version 3 Sea Lion, it underwent continued pre-training on these like 200 billion tokens across 11 official languages in Southeast Asia. Can you walk us through the technical challenges of building these models to cover like, like these 11 languages, and also to handle code switching within the same conversation that might exist in countries like Singapore, for example?
Yeah. So I think a quick update is actually now for the Sea Lion version 4, it's about 500 to 600 billion tokens. And I think code switching definitely is one phenomena that's quite common in our region. In Singapore itself, we have Singlish, right? There's a mix of Chinese, Malay with English. In the Philippines, we have Taglish, which is a mix of Tagalog English, right? Commonly used especially in the city area of the Philippines. To be honest with you, when it comes to code switching, we haven't done much other than making sure that there are some representative corpus of Taglish, of Singlish included in the model. We kind of rely on this hypothesis that if we train the model, we show the model enough English and Chinese and Tagalog, right? They will somehow have this emergent ability to understand the code switch expression that makes this language. And I think to some degree that's true, at least qualitatively from our observation, right? But that's on the input side, right? On the input side is quite true that it has this emergent ability. But on the output side, whether they generate naturally sounding Singlish or naturally sounding Taglish, now I will be surprised if we can, I think the model can achieve that without being shown real examples of Taglish and Singlish, right? So, but the problem with this is that there is no such evaluation exists at the moment. So it's really hard to measure this other than qualitative evaluation. I think another problem that sorry, go ahead, Panpan.
Sorry, yeah. So you mentioned about evaluating these code switching. I don't know whether you guys are attempting to develop a way to benchmark this or to evaluate this. I don't know whether you have any comments on this.
Yeah, so I think just like evaluation is a very important part in model building, right? In fact, that's one area that tends to be overlooked. Whenever we are encountering new language that we want to support, right? Most of the time, as we train the model, we don't really have a quantitative evaluation metrics for that language. We have been building this behind the scene kind of workflow that involves some, humans and language experts behind the scene, native speakers, to provide qualitative evaluation for these new languages. And I think we come up with some rubrics like fluency, whether that sounds quite natural to native ears, is it safe, and so on. So we have this, and then every time we complete the exercise, we always try to work out a way to encode this qualitative assessment, these rubrics, into something that is more metrics oriented. So we have this suite of eval for Southeast Asia that we are developing called the CHELM, right? And I think similar to the new language, that's how we approach it as well for code switching, right? So basically, we have these rubrics. At the moment, we are in the process of encoding it into CHELM metrics.
Right, wow, that's really cool. Looking forward to see, an extension of CHEM, and maybe we can apply some of these techniques to Thai language model evaluation or English Thai code switching as well. And yeah, also I think in your latest release, AI Singapore also introduces multimodal capabilities, combining text and image understanding. How does this multimodal approach specifically address Southeast Asian use cases that global models may struggle with?
Yeah. So I think you heard about my struggle in generating image for Southeast Asia. I think that's a problem of vision. I think that's one of the areas that we hope to kind of close the gap, right? So image generation for Southeast Asia context shouldn't be more difficult than image generation in English, right? So that's our vision. At the moment, we haven't trained Silayan version 4 for image generation. It's actually more for VL. It's more like image understanding task. And we understand that actually there are quite a number of use cases where this is important, right? Where there's enough cultural signals required for the use case to be effective, right? For example, in the area of tourism, right? In the area of cultural preservation, right? Digital archiving, history education, and then in fact something as our daily need, right? Food, right? I think it's a lot of cultural. You show a picture, what would be a nice accompanying dish with this one, for example, which can power things like Grab Food or Go Food, right? So those are very, very important. Recently, Panpan, we were actually doing this like a competition across Southeast Asia, the Developer Day. And in fact, we encountered a lot of excellent ideas from the participants. Many of them addressing very regional specific problems, and some of them actually are requiring these vision capabilities, right? And I think one area that I thought would be also very, very critical for requiring vision is the safety. Right? There are many ways to kind of come up with offensive things through vision in our region, right? So I think that one is also something that we need to push. Yeah.
And for these like vision capability, like do you guys like focus on any specific aspects of, like the applications? So for example, like one can think about, I don't know, like maybe OCR use cases, or maybe, as you mentioned, like maybe try to understand like cultural images, like maybe food that's like unique to Southeast Asia region and stuff like that. I don't know whether you have like any
Yeah.
comments on like any specific use cases that you guys have in mind.
Yeah, at the moment, I think we are trying to tackle the most crucial one, which we think that most people will require, right? Which is that safety element. Now, the safety element
Mm,
requires because I think if it is general safety, like for example, toxic or harmful kind of images, there are some generic, yeah, but and those are sort of like already handled by the frontier models. But when it comes to culturally sensitive images, I think that's probably not existing, and it's very diverse, right? In Thailand will be different from
mm,
Indonesia, from the Philippines. I think we're focusing a lot on that, Panpan. So for the,
mhm.
primarily driven by safety, but then because of that, we have been gathering the cultural, images together with the tagging, right, with the prompts.
Right. I see. Yeah, makes sense. So maybe if we can go back maybe to higher level question
Sure.
a little bit. So in like your development, like can you share some insights about like the biggest technical surprises or findings during Sea Lion's development, particularly in areas where Southeast Asian languages behaved differently than expected? Maybe like some things that like surprise you guys.
Yeah.
Mm,
So in fact, it's quite interesting that when it comes to surprises, these models are, in many ways surprise us, right? They are like human, but they are not really like human, right? So for example, when I think we we were trying to design our tokenizer a while ago, right? And then we actually try to involve some kind of linguistic understanding. I think in our regions we have multiple language families. So we roughly know, what would be the tokenization characteristics of some language families, right? And then we involve some of the human experts. In fact, what we found was the tokenizers that align more with the human understanding of the language is not the best one that we found
yeah.
from the from statistical train test validation, right? So that's kind of interesting, typical machine learning findings. In a similar way, when it comes to cross-lingual transfer, some of these languages, they come from the same family, Thai and Lao, Indonesian and Malay and Tagalog. We thought that cross-lingual transfer will happen more naturally when they're related, but no, they always surprise us. Sometimes I train on Filipino and then Tamil improve. There's no relationship
Okay.
from the language family totally. But on the other hand, these models do learn a little bit like humans. Like I think we have found very often this phenomena in both pre-training and fine-tuning, right? So somehow if we design a curriculum that expose the model on easier concepts first before going to the more difficult ones, in both cases, pre-training and fine-tuning, we end up with a better training, right? So they actually follow the way we think, like human, right? So I think those are some of the surprises, right? But I think when it comes to technical breakthrough, I'm proud of my team in many ways. But if I can pick one, it's coming from this realization that a lot of the problems, the gaps that we are trying to tackle, actually are not measurable at the moment with most of existing evals, right? And then therefore, we have to design our own evals. This C Helm effort may not be the most heard about aspect of the sea lion, but I think it's a very critical one. And I think the way it's still an ongoing work, but the fact that we are building it and set a standard, I think I'm very proud of that, right? And I just want to add beyond the technical things that surprised me is that in Southeast Asia, we have communities like yourself and other communities across the region. They're readily, helping us in building this. I think we have shared aspirations to make this region, a better place for tech development.
Mm. That is very good. Yeah. Thank you for sharing about this. Uh, Yeah, so maybe let's talk a bit about now enterprise impact and the future vision of AI Singapore. So you mentioned earlier that partnerships with companies like GoTo that I believe you guys like help or like collaborate or like building this Sahabat AI and integrating Sea Lion, and also your collaboration with BHP on enterprise AI challenges. How are you bridging the gap between AI research and also and commercial deployment?
Yeah. So I think we have been and we are working with both the academic side as well as the industry side, right? And then we've sort of like involved them in one single project, right? I think, but the key point is that we need to be somewhat like the project manager to ensure that everybody play to their strength. When it comes to engineering scaling, when it comes to deployment, I would give it to the industry, right? The people like the
Mm.
go-to team, right? They're very used to this, right? But when it comes to conceptual things like building cultural alignment diagnostic, that one I think don't give it to them, give it to the academia, right? So we have to kind of route it in the right way. I think the two of them the two camps they complement each other, but they have different work cultures, right? So
Right,
academia work,
yeah.
yeah, I think you're very familiar with this. The academia work long term, right? And then whereas the product and the engineering team they're short term. So many times we have to kind of help them do prioritization, right? We have to say that to the academia, hey guys, research are important. There are certain things that we need to kind of push to later, revisit later after the model release or after the
Mm.
product release. Similarly, on the other hand, we will sometimes also need to kind of communicate with the engineering, the product team that, hey, some experiments, they take time, but they are needed because they can help us save costs, for example, right? I think we have to
Mm.
play this intermediary role, Panpan. Otherwise, it's going to be
Yeah,
difficult. And the good
yeah,
news is
makes
that
sense.
for us in AI Singapore, we have been playing this role even pre-Sea Lion, right? So we have been sort of like the intermediary between the two parts of the ecosystem.
Right. Maybe can you share maybe a little bit more about like maybe your partnership with, like AI research institutes, maybe universities, like locally or globally? I don't know, like whether there's like any specific example where you help them transition from that like research in academia into some like more commercial or like something more tangible?
Yeah, at the moment, actually, we are working very closely with NTU. And particularly, we are focusing on, okay, maybe just a bit of context. The Sea Lion is mostly text-based. I think recently we introduced vision, but I think when it comes to the speech, it's still not there yet. And in fact, there is a research lab both in Singapore, both A-Star as well as NTU. We are working with both of them, but in particular right now, I'm talking about the one in NTU that we are currently working on, sort of like adopting their speech technology and integrating it to the Sea Lion, right? So again, the same thing that I mentioned earlier play out, right? The
Yeah.
prioritization is a little bit different. In fact, you guys have built the Typhoon audio as well, right? So I think it's very interesting that I can already see the different kind of approach that it's being applied. I think the speech lab is a little bit more academic, and then the Typhoon audio is a little bit more, closer to the product. So I think in that meeting is very
Yeah.
interesting interactions. So we try
Yeah.
to make the two work together.
Right, I see. Yeah, I think NTU has been quite established in the speech domain for quite some time,
Yes.
and then they must have bring a lot of expertise for you guys as well. Yeah.
Which is why we don't want to reinvent the
Looking,
wheel. Yeah.
yeah, looking forward to, seeing more models in a speech domain from Singapore. And
Yes.
yeah, so having said that, for so moving on to more like maybe in the enterprise context,
Mm,
for enterprise leaders evaluating regionals versus global LLMs, what
mm.
performance metrics or return on investment indicators should they consider when making these strategic decisions, like choosing Sea Lions or choosing some other like these like global LLMs, whether you have
Yeah.
like, mm,
I think probably the first thing I would like to state is this that we don't have to kind of position it as choosing one versus the other. I think we are entering the world where an AI solution will involve multiple LLMs, right? And I think the global models most likely will always be a part of the solution. They're very good in the big one, especially for reasoning, for coding assistant and all these things. There's the strength. We have to keep them there, right? I think that's part of it. And it's quite accessible by most people. I think where the regional LLM is valuable is going to be like a complement to it, right? So giving it a little bit more cultural nuances in interpreting the prompt and also when producing the output, right? Making some kind of local adaptation to it, right? And I think this can be a competitive advantage actually if you combine the two. So because the regional LLM allows the enterprise to build more connection with the customers, right? To kind of go in the route of personalization, right, of their products as it brings it closer to the culture that the customers are living in, right? So I think the metrics therefore that needs to be used could be customer satisfaction, customer retention, customer acquisition, and how to what degree all these things translate to revenues, right? And I think when it comes to the cost, ROI, investment cost involved, there are many ways to kind of you don't have to build your own regional model yourselves, right? Work with the Typhoon team, work with AI Singapore, right? We are more operating at the aggregation level, and I think there's a way to come up with win-win to reduce the cost significantly.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And having said that, like if you look at the broader Southeast Asian AI landscape, you will see initiatives like, Typhoon at SCB Tenex or Wangchan at BizTech or, like other even like projects in Thailand like Open Thai GPT, just to name a few. And then also in Malaysia, Indonesia, there are also like local efforts like this. How do you see regional collaboration versus competition evolving, like maybe in the next coming 1 or 2 years in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, no. I think I'm actually very happy to see all these things. The way it developed is aligned with our vision. Maybe I start with this by saying that the Sea Lion effort is non-commercial. We are open, and what we are building, we see it as infrastructure development that the region can benefit from, right? And I think we will be very happy to see more partners across the region as they develop their own localized version of models. They consider co-development with us the way SCB10X are partnering with us, the way the Sahabat team essentially built on top of the Sea Lion. There's some kind of resources consolidation which allows us to be a little bit more efficient and learn from each other, right? I think we are not we shouldn't be the best in Thai. We shouldn't be the best in Indonesia. I think Typhoon should be the best in Thai. Sahabat should be the best in Indonesia. We're happy to support that. But when it comes to cross-border, tourism, ASEAN diplomacy use case where, two countries, two languages are involved, that's where we come in, right? That's where the Sea Lion becomes super relevant. And I think this is how we build healthy ecosystem. We complement each other. And I think we shouldn't limit it to our region. We work with Google, we work with Cohere.
Yeah.
I think we should do it also globally, right? So we have a healthy, open LLM ecosystem.
Yeah. That is really cool and make a lot of sense for me as well. Yeah. And yeah, finally, I think as we are wrapping up this session, so what's next for Sea Lion and AI Singapore? And are there any specific launches or partnerships or initiatives that, we should look for 2025 or 2026 that you are able to share?
I'm happy to share, right? I think on the strategic thinking, I think we're going to double down on this collaboration effort, both with the global player, right? I think you know that the Sea Lion version 4 was co-developed with Google, and I think we will do more of this collaboration with global player, not necessarily with Google only, but with others, right? I think that transfer of knowledge is very, very useful, and exchanges are very, very valuable. Regionally, we will also double down. We've done it with Thailand, we've done it with Indonesia. We are looking at other parts of Southeast Asia, the Philippines, and so on, to have that resource consolidation and co-developing local model. We, as the field is maturing, we will push ourselves a little bit closer to value creation. So more applications will be seen to balance the model development. But we are not out there to compete with the commercial sectors. So we're probably going to tackle use cases that is a little bit more infrastructural, healthcare, education, public good, right? I think on the model itself, we heard about multimodal, right? We collaborate with various different players in Singapore and outside on multimodal. We want to make the sea lion more safer, right? So more trustworthy. So I think when it comes to alignment, we got to double down on that, and also dealing with the adversarial attacks. And we also want to push the model to be smaller, Panpan, to make it more resource efficient, which is needed by the region.
Yeah, this is very insightful, and I mean some of these align really well. I think with like what like my team at SCB Next and like other teams like working on also. And well, thank you very much, William, for sharing about multilingual models for Southeast Asia, and it's my pleasure to be talking to you today. Thank you
Same
very
here,
much.
Panpan. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.